everybody, and welcome to this very slightly saddened episode of Sunday Night Live. Um, Shaun Martin was an extremely gifted, an extremely talented young musician. He was 45 years old, and he died yesterday of an undisclosed illness from which he had been suffering since the end of last year's Snarky Puppy tour, um, which had left him with some limited mobilities, but he was he was recovering from it, and it looked like he, might have been turning a corner. Um, he had recorded an album, I think maybe just recently as well, which had been released and was doing well. And he had recently recorded another record with Snarky Puppy, which was also doing extremely well. And he contributed a number of compositions to that record, as well as the tunes that are on his most recent solo record. Um, However, very sadly, yesterday, Shaun died, and he leaves behind a wife and a son. 45 is very, very young. I mean, in the short time that he had with us, that guy achieved more than most. And he was well known to be a very down-to-earth, very gentle guy, with a terrific sense of humor and a great personality. He was an elder in his church, and he was director of music at his church, and was well known for being an incredible help to people in his local community. For example, he was on his way to a recording session with Kirk Franklin, for whom he was musical director. And one of the stories, this particular story goes that he saw a young woman who could not start her car and was having issues with the car, and also had a flat tire to go with it, and was quite distressed because she was trying to get somewhere and was struggling. And Shaun opened the hood of the car and checked the engine over, and managed within a few minutes to get the engine working, and then he changed the tire for her, and got the spare tire on the car and got her sent on her way. He didn't know her, she didn't know him. He was just, she was, a friendly face that she recognized in the community. And that is one of many, many, many examples of the personality that Shaun was. And there's plenty of video evidence of what he was like as a member of Snarky Puppy, and how he would celebrate the achievements and successes of other members of the band when they did something special. For example, Corey Henry's now very famous solo on Lingus on the We Like It Here record, where Corey pretty much played one of the most outstanding keyboard solos, probably of the last 30 or 40 years, which he did on just the first take of the tune. They did a second take, but nobody liked the second take particularly. It just wasn't as astonishing as the first take. And so it's the first take that actually goes on the record and is part of the DVD. But there is a part of the end of that performance where he celebrates with Corey what he had witnessed him do. And actually during the latter section of Corey's solo, he can be seen with his with his face in his hands because he's just totally and utterly blown away by the genius of Corey Henry. I mean, who wouldn't be blown away by the genius of Corey Henry? I think we all have been blown away many, many times by the genius of Corey Henry, but that was, you know, the person that Shaun was. Um, and he was like that on several other Snarky Puppy videos, which you can find on the Snarky Puppy YouTube channel. You'll see that there are plenty of other circumstances where you see his, not only his talent but his humor come through. On my Facebook page, I posted a link to his tune. I believe it's his tune called Sleeper, which is also on the We Like It Here album, where he is performing with a Moog synth through a talk box, and it's a wonderful performance. I have to admit, I have never really liked talk boxes, but when I saw that performance, I was just like, wow, you know, a really stunning performance. So, I wanted to talk about Shaun at the start of the show, because it is big news in the music industry. He was Kirk Franklin's musical director. He won, I think, 3 or 4 Grammys with Kirk Franklin. He performed with Prince. He recorded with Prince. He produced, I think, one of Prince's records. And he won, I think, 5 Grammys. I think 4 or 5 Grammys with Snarky Puppy for both his performances and his compositions. So he was a terrific talent, and you know, much rewarded for his talents. And certainly, my opinion is that he was somebody that was definitely taken from us too soon. 45 years old is no time at all. It's really no time at all. Unfortunately, we don't really know anything much beyond the reasonably well documented illness he had, although we don't know what that illness is because his family chose to kind of keep those kind of details private, other than it was an illness that he had acquired towards the end of his tour with Snarky Puppy last year, which of course turned out to be his final tour and some of his final performances, actually. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Shaun and celebrate him because, I mean, you know, one of the things I like to do on my channel is celebrate talent and celebrate, you know, good musicians and great musicianship. And Shaun had all of that in spades. He really did. And amongst all of that, like I said, a very down-to-earth, very ordinary person, very humble, and was always looking to improve himself and improve his skills, and to make himself a better musician, a better piano player, and all of that. So a very fine example, but you know, taken away far too soon, leaving a young wife and a very young son as well. So that's kind of what I wanted to open the show with tonight. So DJ, I hope that answers your question, because DJ is saying, what are we talking about today? Kind of the giveaway is in the title of the show, in memory of Shaun Martin. So this show is dedicated to him and to his family and to the Snarky Puppy Collective as well, who I know are his friends and his family, and they are all grieving his loss. So my heart, and hopefully your hearts as well, go out to them. Absolutely. So Shaun, wherever you are, thank you for the music, and thank you for your talent and your skills, and for blazing a trail for us all to kind of follow. DJ has some details on Shaun as well. Born August 23rd, 1978. and died just yesterday. American composer, arranger, producer, multi-instrumental musician. Yeah, he played a number of different instruments, not just keyboards, but he was most known for his keyboard and piano playing. But he also played drums, and he also played clarinet, and was a pretty good singer as well. So yeah, that's Shaun. But this show isn't just about Shaun tonight, because I know some of you here have no idea who I'm talking about. So I hope that I have detailed some of those things about who this guy is. When I said in memory of Shaun Martin, this is who we're talking about. Great, great, great musician, great keyboard player, great producer, wrote a heck of a lot of really, really good music. So yes, we are still going to talk about Studio One, and we're going to have your questions like we usually do. It's going to be a normal show other than that, but this show is dedicated to the memory of Shaun Martin. But yeah, that's kind of how I wanted to start the show. So now that we have that kind of stated and spoken about up front, Billy Morgan was the first in the door, which is kind of the usual thing that he does. He's pretty much always first in the door. And right behind you says Ron Figura, who is also saying R.I.P. Shaun Martin. Thank you very much for that. Neil Thompson is here as well. Chris Manrackner is here. He says, good afternoon, everybody. Great day to be alive. Most certainly is, my friend. Absolutely. Could not agree more with that. Dave Barslow is here. He says, that's a rest in peace from me also, Mr. Shaun Martin. I'm sure you are a great person and soul. I pray that God blesses you. Thank you very much for that. And we got Christina over in Denmark as well. She is here, and she's saying hello to everybody as well. Tony Stringer says he is here tonight. Yes, Tony. So glad you're here, mate. And Stephen Wilson is here. And I need to scroll down. Need to move the mouse over there to scroll down. Cal Traduziak is here as well. Don Oliver is here. Tony Cardona is here as well. He says he's brought a walrus with you. How very Beatles of you to do that. And Lucas Rudzicka is here. Thank you very much, my friend, for being here, who is saying hello to everybody. And the room definitely is filling up. We've got over 20 people here, which is fantastic. Neil says there should be some jazz music firing up anytime now. Yes, absolutely. Hopefully the heavenlies are being filled with the sound of amazing jazz piano, for sure. Let's see. Who else we got? We got John Hawk here as well. We got Billy Morgan. I already mentioned him, and he's posting the link to Shaun's Wikipedia page. Yes, please go check that out. You'll find a lot more information about Shaun there. I'm just going to move my chair in a little bit closer. And we got Keith from Radio Top Trumpet as well. We got Dave from Aurora's Boring Alice. And he says, real badass keyboard player with Snarky. Yes, most certainly he was, for sure. DJ says, since we are focusing on this great musician, maybe can you remind us of a few licks that are significant for music? That's a very, very open and very broad question. It depends upon what style of music you're talking about. Let's see. Kyle isn't here. He's hiding under a basement stairs from a thunderstorm. Yeah, Kyle did say he might have to jump off if he has thunder. So, yeah, thunderstorms can be pretty nasty over there. He says he's holding on tightly to the grounding bus. That's the way to do it, and make sure everything in your studio is routed to that bus there, Kyle. For sure. And don't forget, all buses are yellow if you're American, or they're red if you're British. For sure. Here it's been threatening to thunder, but hasn't. We've just had rain. It's been a little bit kind of disappointing. The sky has looked very heavy. It's been very humid. and it's been cranking up to be a cracker of a thunderstorm. But no, it's just raining. I don't know whether you can hear it on the microphone, but it is absolutely slamming against the window right now. Yeah, you may not be able to hear that. Lucas says, I remember learning the song Hosanna by Kirk Franklin for a gig 10 years ago. A video tutorial from Shaun helped me learn how to play the piano part. Super nice and well explained. A great person. Yeah, he was a pretty good educator. I've seen a few videos of his where he's teaching various things, and I don't think I ever came across that particular song, but he certainly showed a few other things. DJ says, I want to pay tribute to the great musician by recalling his significant work. Okay, yeah, like I said, his body of work with Snarky Puppy and his solo records, which you can find on the, I think the solo records you will find on the Rope-a-Dope record label, although they may also now be on the Ground Up label. Not really sure. But yes, you'll find his fantastic body of work on, if you want to see his performances with Snarky Puppy, go onto their YouTube channel and subscribe. Just go over there. Not right now, after this show. Go over to the Snarky Puppy YouTube channel and subscribe, and you will find that a lot of the records are categorized into playlists. So you'll find the Ground Up record, which actually features some fantastic music. It's really a great record. It's done a good few years ago now, but on that record there's one particular song that's on there that goes through several different styles, including some second line New Orleans music, and it's really great. And it finishes up with a solo piano feature in the middle of that song by Shaun on this small little baby concert grand piano. And he actually ends up pretty much on top of the piano. So it's, yeah, which is something that is drawn out by Michael League, who is the leader of the band, to make some amusing commentary about the fact that Shaun is literally on the piano. So yeah, go watch that. And also, like I said, Sleeper, which is on the We Like It Here record. There's some really great performances there. And there's actually on the Ground Up record, which I mentioned previously, there's some really good Moog solos there that he plays as well. So definitely check those out. Neil says, we can't hear the rain because you are a professional live streamer who uses a gate to silence any background noise. Actually, I don't use a gate. I use an expander. Is what I use. I use an expander, and actually it's not an expander built into Studio One or an expander built into my interface, because there is no excuse me. There's no DSP on the Quantum HD, and that rhymed. Unintentionally, but it rhymed. And maybe I should make a little ad for Presonus for a feature request to ask them to add DSP to the HD. The Quantum HD. But yes, there's there's no built-in fat channel or anything like that on the Quantum HD. So what I am using is I'm using an expander that is built into OBS, and it's actually pretty good. It's actually a pretty good expander. It's basically the GUI for the expander is not necessarily that great. It features like a couple of sliders, and then you basically have to guess how it might sound. So you have to make some test videos and test out how you want the expander to sound. And it took me maybe 5 or 6 attempts before I landed on the settings that I have now for the expander, and it sounds pretty good. I mean, you don't really hear it, if you know what I mean. You don't hear the expander coming in and coming out, which is really good. And that's all about making sure you get the attack and release times of the expander right. Once you've got those, it sounds pretty good. It's a very clear, very transparent expander. You don't really hear the actual effects of it. When I stop talking, you don't actually hear it slam the door shut, so to speak, like you would on a gate. You would hear the sound just go. Whereas on an expander, it kind of just slowly, it's nice and subtle and gentle. See what I mean? When I'm not talking, it just, you don't actually hear it kick in, and when I start talking again, you don't hear it open up again. So let me see. Christina says, YouTube, we like it here. Snarky Puppy. Yes. Personally, of all of their records, now I know that they have done a record called Empire Central fairly recently, which is also extremely good. So is, and here's another one of their records that I'm going to flag up to you because the styles of music are completely eclectic. And that is what they called it's escaped my brain. Damn it. I hate it when that happens. Something to do with dinner. Anyway, and I can't remember what they called it. Damn, I hate that. I'm going to have to go find it because I want to get it right. Let me see. I'm going and looking their channel up because I'm already subscribed, so I need to scroll down through my way too many subscriber playlists. Family Dinner. That's what it was called. Family Dinner. They made 2 volumes of this. They made volume 1 and volume 2. So they did it in 2 completely different venues. And the audience are basically on the stage with the band. Which I actually really like. And basically they have a bunch of different guest performers who join them, and they work with these guest artists to do Snarky Puppy style arrangements of their songs. But they're all very, very different. Some of them are actually really pretty straight ahead pop. And then some of them have, some African influences. Some of them have, Jacob Collier is one of the guest artists. And what they did with one of his songs is just mind blowing. And then the jazz fusion electronica group Noah are on there as well, and they did a phenomenal version of one of their songs. So yeah, and of course Shaun features very heavily in a good number of those. So yeah, We Like It Here is actually, I think, one of my favorite records of theirs. I've been a Snarky Puppy fan for maybe about 10 years. Maybe actually a little bit longer. It's going to be like 2012, 2013 when I first discovered them. And they actually came to the UK, and they didn't really have a tour bus. It was like a van. It was like one of those transit minivans. And it had a trailer on the back, and all their gear was in the trailer on the back. Which they were pulling along. They were towing it, attached to the back of the van. And they lived in the van. The band slept in the van, basically, because they didn't really, they spent all the money on booking the venues to play the gigs, and then they would either sleep on the lounge floors of members of the audience, or they would sleep in the van, and that's kind of how they did their first early tours. And that's kind of where I first kind of discovered them, because they came to Edinburgh in 2013, and that was their first trip to Edinburgh, and it was great. They played the jazz bar, and the number of musicians is like 15 musicians, squeezing them onto the tiny stage in the jazz bar on Chambers Street in Edinburgh. It was an amazing night, an amazing gig, and the band all stuck around after the show, and a few of us went to a bar that I know, and I pointed the guys in the band in that general direction to that bar, and I said, go there if you want to if you want to have like after hours drinks and stuff. And they did. And it was great. And then I think the next time I saw them in Edinburgh was 3 years ago. Yeah. Would it be 3 years ago? No, it's longer than 3 years ago. Good grief. It'd be 2019. It'd be like 5 years ago. Because I saw Steely Dan and I saw Snarky Puppy basically a week apart. And actually I saw Steely Dan in Glasgow and I saw Snarky Puppy at what used to be called the Corn Exchange, which is no longer there. Really nice venue in the centre of Edinburgh. Gone now, sadly. Anyway, oh, okay. DJ says, I mean, what did you personally take away from his work? What did he teach you? What aspects of music did he draw your attention to? He was a terrific piano player and keyboard player of great versatility and skill in a number of different styles. But I mean, his background is in the gospel tradition and church music. That's kind of where he got his start. He started playing in his church at about the age of, I think, 5 or 6, something like that. And he ended up, director of music at that church. So that's his kind of background. But he was a ferocious improviser, very daring improviser, liked to, to play outside. And what do I mean by playing outside? I mean, this is really a songwriting simplified kind of question. Basically what that means is playing outside of the key that you're in. So if you're playing in G major, a lot of outside playing tends to be kind of either a half step above or a half step below. Temporarily, you don't want to do it for too long because otherwise it just sounds like you're playing in the wrong key and doesn't sound very good. So you have to kind of resolve that tension. And he was very, very good at that. Terrific improviser. And played with a lot of heart, a lot of soul, a lot of passion. And so that's the kind of music I'm into. Music, I don't really care what style it is. If it's got heart, if it's got soul, if it's got passion, if the musicianship is good, if the songwriting is good, if the arrangement is good, I will dig it. Seriously. And that does include country music, actually. I know I've often joked about, I can only listen to country music when I'm within 6 inches of a defibrillator. And whilst that may actually be true, there are actually some really good country songs out there and some really good country artists that I will actually listen to and enjoy their music because the music is good. Likewise, the same with folk music. I listen to a lot of folk music. My parents are very eclectic in the music that they perform and also the music that they write together as well. A lot of the stuff is jazz and it's soul, and it has all of that, but they also do some folk music as well, both American and English folk music. So I'm well versed in both American and English folk music. In fact, I'm well versed in American songwriting that goes back to the days of the American Civil War, because I had to learn some of those songs, and there was some actually really, really great songs written back then. Anyway, that's a songwriting simplified show kind of thing. But DJ, I hope that answers your question. So Ron says, I successfully got the NSB 8.8 networked to the 32R, got audio to work, but there are regular dropouts when feeding a static synth tone into the channels. Thoughts? I have no thoughts. And I'll tell you why I have no thoughts, because I don't have either of those devices. I have never had any of those devices, unfortunately. I do have a Studio Live mixer, but it is the console mixer rather than the rack mount mixer, which is what you have. And I don't have the NSP stage box either. But if you're getting regular dropouts, how regular would be my question? Are they predictably regular? Like you can predict exactly when a dropout is going to occur? Because if you can predict exactly when a dropout is going to occur, then it could be something in your routing somewhere. It could be a cable. It could be connection. It could be any of those, or it could be something in your Studio One setup that might be worth looking into. Especially if it's like really regular, you can go, okay, a dropout is going to happen now, and then you get the dropout, or that kind of stuff. Or if it's like a particular pattern to the dropouts, then you could look at something along the lines of what I just said. But if it's like really intermittent, like once in a while, not predictably once in a while, but maybe, sometimes it happens in 10 seconds and then maybe it doesn't happen for another 3 minutes, but then it happens 15 seconds after that. If it's not that kind of regular, then I would go for something like a cable shorting out or some arcing somewhere. Or something not quite connected properly. Okay, Ron says maybe every 10 or 20 seconds. Okay, so it's that predictable. Then that suggests to me that you maybe want to look at the actual routing and setup or your networking cable. That sounds to me like a networking issue potentially, if it's like that regular. And Kyle says generic network cable or specific AVB cable. Yeah, great question. Great question. DJ says, thank you for your explanation. They will help me take a closer look at his work and drawing on the richness of his approach to improvisation. Yeah, go take a look. Go take a look. Yeah, go and check out his work with Snarky Puppy. Go check out his work with Kirk Franklin, because there is a litany of work there for which he has won Grammy Awards. I think ShaunMartin.com is his website, which is probably still live, so you can probably still go and you can check out I think there are playlists there of his work, both with Snarky Puppy and with other artists as well. He worked with a lot of different artists, including, I think, Erykah Badu is one of them. And Björk. Everyone remember the Icelandic singer Björk? He produced a couple of records of hers and played on them. Yeah, so he was a terrifically versatile musician playing in a variety of different styles, but for the most part, he was known for his jazz work and his gospel work and the eclectic jazz fusion melting pot that is Snarky Puppy. Snarky Puppy are a very, very interesting band, because for as much as there is jazz in there is also a whole bunch of other styles in there as well. That they don't, it's not just pastiche. It's not just kind of like, they are trying to do Brazilian music. They're trying to do, Polynesian, French, African music or something like that. They actually genuinely do that music, following its style, following its genre, following its customs, and all of that. So, they don't muck about. They don't like just poke, interest at a particular genre. They will actually go all in and make that work. Michael League is the leader of Snarky Puppy and the founder of Snarky Puppy, who's gone on to found a whole bunch of other bands as well. Some playing in completely eclectic different styles, world music styles as well. And he's written music in all sorts of genres. So yeah, these are great musicians out of I think North Texas State University, I think, is where they all kind of have their origins. Let's see. Neil Thompson says, any possibility that not all devices are using the same clock? That is another great question. Make sure, Ron, that you check out the clock for both of your devices and your computer. Make sure they are all using the same clock, maybe. DJ says, someone once said that dying great musicians power the greatest orchestras in the universe, and I hope this is the case. That's an interesting little saying. I quite like that. Boris is here. Hello, Boris. Good to see you, buddy. And he says Larnell is a beast. Yes, Larnell is one of the drummers from Snarky Puppy. And he definitely is a beast. Because he's one of these guys who will listen to a tune and immediately play it as if he's well rehearsed. If you, going back to the We Like It Here record, Snarky Puppy recorded that in the Netherlands. And Sput Seawright was supposed to be the drummer on that record. And unfortunately he got sick, so he couldn't do the record. So they flew Larnell out from Canada to the Netherlands. And they basically sent him a bunch of MP3s of the songs for him to, and some of them weren't actually finished. Some of them were just kind of like a rough set of chord changes and a melody line. And that's all he had to work with. And then he arrived at the airport and he got picked up by a cab, got brought to the studio. They set up his drums and they started to record immediately. No rehearsals for Larnell. The band had rehearsed the day before. Larnell was straight in cold, no rehearsal, having only heard the MP3s on the plane on the way over. And he goes and absolutely smacks each one of those tunes on that record out the park. Really, really great performances. So yeah, that's Snarky Puppy, one of my favorite bands, and they are all insanely, incredibly talented, gifted musicians who have all worked extremely hard at their craft. Every single one of them. But yes, tonight's show basically is focusing on Shaun. But I also want to, make sure that we give mention to the other folks in the band as well. All right, so we have 20 minutes left of the show. I believe after excuse me. I believe right after this show we have the New Orleans Studio One meetup. Is that correct? I believe it is. If I have read my calendar correctly, I'm just going to go and double check to be sure. Yes, it is. It is the New Orleans Studio One meetup right after this. Right after this show finishes. So if you want to join us, we normally have like an after show Zoom. But if you are a Studio One user and if you would like to know more, or if you have questions about using Studio One, then please do come and join that Zoom call, which Billy will be hosting. We've had, let's just say, when we've been on Zooms after show, we had, let's just say, a couple of interesting characters that tried to infiltrate. They have been summarily removed and they were reported to Zoom as well. So hopefully they have lost their Zoom privileges and their Zoom accounts, hopefully. So I have been in touch with Zoom regarding those particular individuals. And all I'm going to say really is, if you are one of those people who tried to infiltrate that Zoom call the other week, I reported you all, every single one of you. I reported every single one of you to Zoom. And Zoom have already terminated at least one of those Zoom user accounts. And they are going to ban you and ban your IP address, so you will not be able to make any further Zoom accounts. So Billy says, no, they weren't. Most certainly not. None of my friends would ever do anything like what they did. So no is the answer to that. So yeah, so if you try and infiltrate the meetings, that's what's going to happen to you. You will lose your Zoom accounts. You'll be banned by your IP address. You will not be able to participate in any more. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. Let's see. I'm just catching up with the stream. Ron says, I don't think it's cabling. Audio cables are known to be good. Cat 6 is brand new. Okay. Sounds to me like it's probably a clock thing. I think it's your clock that's probably the problem. Yes, Christina, I think you're right. Yeah, Neil says, I thought the clock thing was the most likely due to the nature of the interruptions having a regular interval. It makes sense that this is what would happen. Yeah, I definitely think so. DJ says, sorry, but switching to a subscription will discourage me to Studio One. Well, good news for you, and has been confirmed by a few other people. And that is this. You don't have to. Sorry, my voice. You don't have to subscribe to Studio One Plus to get Studio One. To get the latest version of Studio One, you don't have to. Okay? You can get a perpetual license. You can do that today if you want to. There is literally nothing that says that you have to subscribe. And I'm going to prove that to you from the Personas website. If you just bear with me just 1 second. And I will share the screen. And you'll see here. You can get the Pro edition of Studio One, perpetual license. So you can upgrade from a previous version. So if you have like version 5 or version 4 or version 3 or version 2 or even version 1 professional, or maybe one of the artist editions from one of those older versions, you can upgrade for $150. Or you can purchase Studio One Professional for the first time if you've never had it before. And that would be $400. And you get all version 6 updates included. All right? So whatever updates to Studio One version 6 that are yet to be released, you will get those. Okay? Or you can go down this route here. Now, these two routes here are your subscription packages. But note this one. The hybrid one, this gets you perpetual and an annual subscription. So if you get this one for $180 per year, for each year you get 12 months of access to Studio One Plus, which includes Studio One Professional and a whole litany of add-ons and sound libraries, and you'll get collaborative tools. You'll get access to workspaces. You'll also get access to the Studio One Plus community as well, and loads of other things. Just hundreds of other things. And then at the end of that 12 months, you get a Studio One Pro perpetual license, which is yours to keep at the end of that 12-month period. All right? So it's billed annually, so it's $180 per year, and you get all of that. And at the end of every 12 months, so if at the end of that 12 months you decide, hey, I like this, I'm going to renew. So you renew. And you go for another year. At the end of that 12 months, you'll get another Studio One Pro perpetual license at whatever version that Studio One is at in 12 months' time. All right? And you'll keep doing that every time. And it's always a perpetual license which you can keep. Or you can go month to month. And this gives you Studio One Professional and everything Studio One Plus has to offer for $19.99 per month, but you don't get the perpetual license. But if you start on this and you decide, actually, I really am enticed by that perpetual license, you can upgrade to hybrid. It's dead easy to do. But yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to subscribe at all. There is no onus on you to do that in order to own a perpetual Studio One. Okay, you can just go and buy the perpetual license today if you want. Let's see. And Kyle says, you are not required to do a subscription. You can still buy it outright. Yes, you can still get it exactly the same way you have always been able to get Studio One. You can upgrade in exactly the same way as you have always been able to. Nothing changes. If that's the way you want to go, you can keep doing that. Or you can go with hybrid, or you can go with the monthly. Kind of up to you, really. We like to keep things nice and variegated, so you've got options. Let's see. Keith says it's such a good deal, people get confused. Yeah, that kind of is definitely true. Neil says, I get what you're saying. We'll just have to wait and see what is offered when version 7 drops. If V7 is 100% subscription, we can just keep using version 6. That's all good. Exactly. If that's the way it goes. Tony says, will all the plugins remain after changing to hybrid? Yes, because monthly and hybrid basically give you exactly the same thing, which is Studio One Plus. So anything that you had in Studio One Plus when you were month to month, and then you go up to hybrid, you keep them because it's the same thing. It's just a different way of paying for it. And so naturally, because you're going to the hybrid, that then gives you, after 12 months, the perpetual license. Okay? It's still Studio One Plus. It's still subscription. So it has everything that the subscription package has to offer. It's just that at the end of the 12 months, you get the perpetual license. If you're on monthly, you don't get that. But everything you get, you keep. Unless you decide to cancel. If you decide to cancel, anything you gain from your membership, you will lose. In exactly the same way that if you are a member of a gym where you do weight training and all of that kind of stuff, if you decide to cancel your membership of that gym, and that membership of that gym gave you basically for an annual fee or a monthly fee, free reign, complete access to everything that the gym has to offer, and all you do is just, the money just goes out automatically via direct debit every month. You don't even have to think about it. You just go to the gym and you use whatever you want to do. That it's like the whole place is yours. However, if you cancel that membership, you lose all of that. So once you've cancelled your membership and you go to the gym expecting to have the same thing, you won't have it. You will have to pay for the individual things that you would normally just get for no extra cost. So it's kind of how subscriptions work. So anything you gain from a subscription, you lose when you end the subscription. That's kind of the value of the subscription. So it would be the same case with Netflix. You know, if you have Netflix for 12 months and then at the end of the 12 months you decide, I don't really want Netflix anymore. You cancel the membership of Netflix. You no longer get access to all the films and TV dramas and all that kind of stuff that's in Netflix. You don't get that anymore. And you don't get access to that anymore. So when you try to get access to it, you won't unless you pay again. It's kind of how that works. Expire is another thing. Not really. If your membership expires, you still lose. You still lose everything that you gain from the membership, because something expiring is the same as canceling. It's just canceling is done by you, whereas expiring is just run out. Like if you have a month. Let's say you are month to month, and you come to the end of your month, but you don't renew it. It expires. It runs out. You only bought a month's worth of usage. And so at the end of that month, if you don't then pay again, the access ends. And that's how that goes. Perpetual is different. Perpetual basically is the way that you have always been able to get Studio One. You buy the license, it's yours, that's it. But that's all you get. You don't get all the stuff that you get with Studio One Plus. You only get the Studio One Pro license. That's it. And that's yours to keep. And you can keep using it ad infinitum. You could keep using it until it's no longer supported by your operating system. If you want to. You know? So, yeah. So if at the end of the hybrid, for example, let's say you get to the end of the 12 months of hybrid and you decide you don't want it anymore, you get to keep that perpetual license. That perpetual license is frozen in time. Okay? But you do lose access to all the Studio One Plus stuff. So if you have been if you've been creating songs or working on songs that have used products from Studio One Plus, those will be deactivated. They won't work anymore. So if you know that you are going to end your hybrid or you're going to allow your hybrid to expire, render those tracks. Because those products that you gained from your membership will be deactivated because you don't have the right to use them anymore. Neil says, but regarding hybrid, there are effects, etc., available in Studio One Plus that are not available in Pro. So at the end of 12 months, user may have effects in songs that quit working. Yes, correct. Anything, literally anything that you gain from your subscription, when your subscription ends, if you do not renew, you lose. You do not have those anymore. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So yes, you get to keep the perpetual license at the end of the 12 months, but anything that you have used that comes from Studio One Plus membership, you don't have anymore. Those are deactivated, so those things will not work anymore. So you will need to render any tracks, any audio events that have used those in those songs. Otherwise, they just won't be there. So, you know, if you've used, let's say you've used that tenor sax loop library that was added to Studio One Plus, I think 3 months ago. And let's say you decide that you're gonna basically create a little tenor sax solo out of a little string of maybe 3 or 4 of those loops. And you like how that song sounds. And then you decide, you know, down the line, hey, I'm just going to let my membership expire because I don't really need it anymore. So you just let it expire. And then you open that song up again. You'll find that those tenor sax things are gone. They just won't work anymore. So you'll get missing files errors. So the way around that is to render those tracks so that they are no longer just from, you know, the loop library where you got them from, where you drag them into Studio One. Render them. That way they're just audio files. DJ says, I understand because I have the Pro 6 version and I'm just talking about a strange policy in combination with Fender and Studio One. I'm not really sure why you think it's a strange policy. And in actual fact, you're just going to, by talking about Fender and Studio One, you're just going to entangle yourself even more into confusion. Okay? Studio One Plus, before it was called Studio One Plus, was called Persona Sphere. And that launched in 2020, long before Fender were in the picture for purchasing PreSonus. So we launched that as PreSonus before we were bought by Fender. So actually the subscription model that we have was our idea. We developed it, we launched it, we made it public. And then all we did a couple of years ago was change the name of it from PreSonus Sphere to Studio One Plus, because pretty much our customers, one of the things we realized was our customers weren't referring to it as PreSonus Sphere. They were referring to it as, hey, this is a smart way to try out Studio One for a month. Plus you also get all these other cool things as well, but you get to try out Studio One for a month, and then if you like it, you can just add another month to it. Or if you want to try it out for a little bit longer, you just add another month to it. And so we realized that that's how people were thinking about it. So, and how they were talking to each other about encouraging each other to, to get it, to get Sphere. And so they were talking about it in the context of Studio One. They weren't really talking about it in the context of Studio One and Notion and everything else. They're talking about it in the context of Studio One. So that's why we changed the name of it from PreSonus Sphere to Studio One Plus. Studio One plus everything else. Studio One plus Notion plus the expansion sounds for Notion plus all of these loop libraries and a whole bunch of other things, including collaborative tools. And then Fender came on the scene. And they bought PreSonus. But we have continued developing Studio One, Notion Mobile, and Studio One Plus ourselves. It's a PreSonus product. Okay? Which is why when you open up Studio One 6.6.2, which is the current release version of Studio One, when you look at the bottom, it says PreSonus. It doesn't say Fender, it says PreSonus. Because it's a PreSonus product. Just in the same way, 21 years ago, Yamaha bought Steinberg. But when you look at Cubase, you don't see Yamaha, you see Steinberg. Because it's a Steinberg product. It has been for 21 years. It still is. So in that sense, you need to forget about Fender, because Fender are just the parent company that own PreSonus. But it's PreSonus that develops Studio One, Notion Mobile, and all the sound libraries and the collaborative tools and everything else that you find in Studio One Plus. So in that sense, it has very little to do with Fender. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand that. DJ says other DAWs are bringing AI to their lineup and other things, and Studio One doesn't have such tools in their lineup. And the merger with Sphere, it isn't exactly development of the DAW itself. I'm not sure what you mean by the merger with Sphere. Sphere is a PreSonus product. It's not that Sphere merged with Studio One or anything like that. PreSonus Sphere, as it was, which is now called Studio One Plus, is basically a subscription package by which you can get Studio One. Studio One is the DAW. Okay? Studio One Plus is the membership package that gets you everything. Okay? So it's not really a merger of anything. It's just a different way to get Studio One. You can either buy it outright via a perpetual license, or you can join the subscription and get Studio One plus all of these other things. So I'm not quite sure I agree with you when you say, in fact, I'm very certain I don't agree with you when you say that Studio One Plus PreSonus Sphere isn't exactly a development of the DAW itself, because actually it is. It's the DAW plus all of these other things that you get with it. Like, for example, the collaborative tools. um, you know, the collaborative tools are something that you don't really get outside of a Studio One Plus membership. You can do it. You can do it with anybody, basically. All they need is a free my.personas.com account. But here's the catch. It's not really a catch, but here's the thing about that. The best integration and the best way to be able to collaborate with someone else is for both parties to be members of Studio One Plus, because you get the best being able to send and receive files. So guitar parts, piano parts, trumpet parts, saxophone parts, whatever, violin parts, I don't know, Northeast African nose flute parts, whatever it is that you are sending back and forth to each other. The integration with the collaborative tools in Studio One 6 with Studio One Plus is the best experience for using the collaborative tools. So that is actually a development of Studio One that wasn't there before. DJ says, I'm not talking about the door race, but more about meeting the needs of modern music producers. And exactly that is what we are doing with Studio One. And that's exactly what we're doing with Studio One Plus. It's the whole idea. I mean, we don't just add features to Studio One for the sake of adding features to Studio One. We're adding tools that people can use to make music. That's the whole point. Anyway, with that said, the Studio One meetup has now started. So if you would like to go and join that, we have the link to that Billy has provided. And the password is S1 Meetup, which is all in lowercase. So if you'd like to go over there, I will be going over there very shortly. So please head on over there. And I will see you over there. And otherwise, if you're not up for that, or you've got other things on, then I will see you on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified. And actually, some of the questions that have been brought up about songwriting and composing and improvisation and stuff about Shaun in that respect, we can carry over into Wednesday's show, and we can talk more about those kind of things. But until then, folks, I'm going to wish you all a very good evening, and I will see you on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, right back here on this channel for Songwriting Simplified. Until then, folks, good night.